So it's been a weird fall, like super weird. I've been really struggling with a few things in my life, and I want to make a few videos to talk about this, but I'm just not quite ready to film and to post them yet. But I've been working on them, and they're going to be coming soon. But I'm home for the break for Thanksgiving, and I wanted to make a video kind of talking about one of the ways that I've been dealing with some of the personal issues that I've been facing. And it's a little bit surprising. It's through reading fiction. And I'm going to explain that, but before I get started, I'd just like to thank Audible for sponsoring this video. Now, at the start of the year, when I started to really get into reading, I really didn't read any fictional books. I was reading a lot of nonfiction stuff. I was reading, a lot of self-help books, a lot of psychology books, philosophy, stuff about, artificial intelligence, science, stuff like that. I wasn't really reading a lot of fiction. I guess I viewed reading fiction as kind of just like entertainment, kind of like watching videos on Netflix or whatever, right? I just kind of viewed it as this passive form of entertainment. You're just engaging in a story. And so because I was reading, so much nonfiction stuff, I just chose to partake in my entertainment in other ways. I just didn't think there was a lot of value in reading fiction. But over the past few months, as I've read more fiction, and I've been struggling with these questions about identity. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to be with? Right? These are really tough human questions to be asking. And what I found is that fiction can give some answers to these questions that nonfiction just couldn't. I want to give a concrete example of this because I always learn best when I have examples. So take a look at Shakespeare, right? So like many of you, I was forced to read Shakespeare in high school. We did it in English class. It was mandatory. We spent weeks getting through a play because it was written in centuries-old dialect that most people couldn't just, skim through. And to be honest, most of us didn't enjoy it, like myself included all the time. It just felt a little bit cumbersome and a little bit pointless. And it's not just high school kids that felt this way. In the 1980s, there was a huge push to make Shakespeare less popular, to teach him less in school, because, well, his work just isn't relevant to a modern world anymore. Because, it's really easy to look at Shakespeare and say, oh, well, they didn't have cars back then, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have phones, so relationships back then are so different to how they are now, people are so different, that it's just, you're not really learning anything from that. But I disagree with that. Because in my opinion, the value of fiction comes through building empathy with human characters. With reference to Shakespeare, right? We can see a little bit of ourselves in Macbeth, when we see him betray his values for his lust for power. And we can see a little bit of ourselves in Romeo or Juliet as they make terrible decisions for love. And in this way, we can start to understand who we are, why we're making the choices that we're making, and what the consequences of our choices could be. Through fiction, through reading a story, we're better able to understand ourselves because we can have empathy with the character within the story. And that's really the beauty of fiction. And that's the part that I didn't understand before. It's not about, learning laws of the world. It's not about learning how to interact with people or learning how specific subsystems of, different technologies work. It is none of that, right? It's about building empathy and understanding who you are through seeing yourself in other characters. And I know this sounds a little bit, romantic and, wishy-washy of me, but when you look at the people who have cited Shakespeare, the example I was using, as major inspiration for their work, for example, Sigmund Freud, right? When he's developing his theory of psychoanalysis, right? It was Shakespeare that inspired him for many of his popular theories of how people behave. And Karl Marx used Shakespeare for his writings on inequality, right? So you're looking at these really famous thinkers, these people who changed the way that we view ourselves and the way that we view humans. And they were inspired by fiction, by Shakespeare. And so I was wrong to discount fiction before. Because I think when it comes to questions of values, of human nature, sure, you can think about them, logically through philosophy and through psychology, and that's great, and there's huge value in that, and I'm not discounting that. But sometimes when it comes to questions in your own life, you have to feel things. And one way that you can do that is by building empathy with characters in fiction. And so that's what I've been trying to do, and that's what I've been doing, and what I'll continue to do for the rest of my life. I'm not going to discount fiction after this, because I'm realizing that when it comes to these very human problems that everyone faces, there's a ton that you can learn from the characters and the stories that these great authors have written. So if you've gotten to this point in the video, it's probably pretty clear that I love to read. fiction, nonfiction, you name it. But as also you might be aware, it's not always appropriate to have a physical book. You know, if you're walking down the street between classes, if you're on the subway, if you're driving, you can't always be reading. So in cases like these, I love to use Audible. So Audible is my preferred source of audiobooks and audio content. I've used it for a few months now, and it's been really awesome. Now, Audible just launched a really interesting program called Audible Originals. And what they're doing is if you become a member, every month you get a credit for any audiobook in their library like before, but you also get 2 credits to choose from a curated list of original content that they've made. So this month, for example, I listened to a narration by Nick Offerman. It's really interesting. Now, Audible's also running a promotion right now where you can get a membership for only $6.95 a month for 3 months. So that's more than 50% off. It's a really good deal, especially when you consider the new originals offering. And if you want to get a 30-day free trial, which includes an audiobook credit and 2 Audible Originals credit, use code JohnFish. So to do that, you're going to go to audible.com/JohnFish or text JohnFish to 500-500. If I could recommend a book to you guys, the one that I've been listening to recently is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. It's a classic. So again, go to audible.com/JohnFish or text JohnFish to 500-500 if you want a 30-day free trial, a free Audible credit, and 2 free Audible Originals credits. It's a pretty fantastic deal. So thank you so much for watching. This video was a little bit, all over the place, and the next few videos I'm going to be kind of exploring these questions of who I am, who I want to be. I mean, that's kind of the purpose of this YouTube channel, is to figure that out. I'm in college, I'm figuring these things out. And it's scary at times, and it's tough at times, but I'm excited all the time because, the prospect of the future is just, I don't know, I'm excited. So if you want to come along for the ride, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I've got some cool videos, some cool projects coming your way in the next year. It's going to be a really fun time, and I'm excited to share it with you. So if you like this video, drop a like, leave a comment if you want to, talk about this more. Feel free to shoot me an email. I can't reply to them all, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.